Carter's coming back.
Hey guys, sorry we're late. This is Jason Tucker. This is WPwatercooler. Episode number 285. Today's topic is I think we're going to end up talking about something cool. We'll see what we can talk about here. Let's go around.
What a crazy random happenstance.
What the heck, George? Dude.
Who's that guy?
Just like slip in at the last moment. What's up, George? How's it going, man?
That's hiding from the planets. Yay, sabbatical. I'm George. I do nothing right now until the beginning of September when I have to do Jetpack again. I mean, get to Jetpack again.
But you still have WordPress on the brain. Come on, you have opened it. Let's be real. Yeah, you're paying attention.
Yes, because I am such a workaholic. When I'm on my 3-month paid sabbatical, I wind up volunteering for the local
stuff.
The local campaign that is trying to unseat our Republican congressman and get a new. Yeah.
Nice.
Politics are coming out. But
I'm stopping.
That's the same thing as WordPress.
Yeah,
totally same thing as WordPress.
And they would be very excited. The candidate I'm working with, Jess King, she ran like the small business administration in Lancaster for years, and yeah.
Jess King's working with the. We should probably not talk about this.
Okay.
I was going to go on a tangent, but I'm like, wait, this is a non-political show. Never mind.
Speaking of politics, Russ, tell us a bit about yourself.
Speaking of politics.
Speaking of Nevada.
Speaking of our state with horrible senators and everybody, is it
warm there?
It is unrealistically hot here, but it is not on fire. So, we have that going for us. I'm Russ. I work at Web Dev, and let's talk about some WordPress stuff.
There's nothing to burn. There's nothing to burn in Vegas.
There's a lot of sagebrush. No, there's a lot of sagebrush.
There's money and there's secrets. That's what you burn in Vegas. Money and secrets. And you would know all about those, right, Steve?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So, all right, say what about you? Tell us where the dead bodies are.
I don't know what you just said, but I know secrets.
Would corpses be considered secrets?
Yeah. If they were buried surreptitiously, that's a weird turn we just took. Okay.
This church is going dark.
Who am I? I am alive and well and not burning, despite the fact that the state is. And I make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress at Say Read Media still on Twitter. And then there's going to be some other profiles coming soon. So stay tuned. But follow me on Twitter if you want that info, I guess. So.
Nice.
I got to come up with a better tagline now.
I told you you're going to have to change the tagline.
At Say Read Media on most of the things.
on one thing, really.
On the usual things.
It's just Twitter.
What about you, Steve?
I am Steve Zenkett. I'm the founder of Zeke Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup.
Allegedly.
I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog. I help run the Whittier WordPress meetup, and I do a show here as well as a show over on WP Blab. Feel free to go take a look at those on Thursdays.
That's all alleged.
All right. So say you were talking pre-show that you wanted to talk about Gutenberg, and not only Gutenberg, but Gutenberg and
no, I wanted to talk about Drupalberg. Drupalberg. Well, okay, so you posted something that I responded to and got a lot of blowback. Not a lot, but a little. Enough. And so anyway, basically what you said was that, hey, Drupal peeps. That was you, right?
Yep.
It would be crazy if you
say it like that. Hey, Drupal peeps.
Basically, what did you say, Jason? Why don't you tell us what you said?
Well, that Drupal is now looking at using Gutenberg as the editor of choice for their platform, and that a lot of folks were kind of freaking out about it because of the fact that we're now going to be having a WordPress project, kind of stuffed into Drupal, and it sounds like an interesting thing. And I want to say, just before we totally get into this, that April 1st, 2013 was the last time we talked about Drupal on this show. And that was the time when we actually talked about Drupal.
We turned this into the Drupal cooler.
This was the Drupal water cooler that year. Yep.
That was a fun episode. You should rewatch that episode if you have not seen it yet, or just watch it. Rewatch it if you've seen it. watch it.
I mean, to be fair, there hasn't been much in Drupal to mention on our show since then.
Oh, come on. Let's not be mudslinging. They've got a
like-
lot of stuff going on with Twig for templates, with Drupal 8 finally shipping.
Okay, sabbatical man.
Yeah, it was a joke, my man.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
Someone
I'm saying.
Hashtag me too.
Wait, is this
No, all I'm saying is Drupal is not the enemy. There are open source brethren. They are GPL. They are good people, and let's not be trashing them when we have Squarespace to trash.
That's true. That's true. This show was not sponsored by Squarespace, by the way.
It is now. Now that you said that, it's definitely going to be now.
Oh, they're
It's
going to
gonna
play an
pop up
ad on the
all our
bottom.
feeds everywhere.
Yeah. But okay, so I hear what you're saying, George, totally about Drupal and the ethos of Drupal being similar to that of WordPress with the open source. It's not a closed, walled garden, for-profit company, blah, 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 blah. However, the attitude of Drupal folk toward WordPress over the last, I don't know, forever, has been WordPress. That's like a toy. Like, why are you even messing with that? I'm a grown-up programmer and I use Drupal. That's basically
And now they're just stealing our shit. Yo.
Well, that's the thing. And now they're like, oh, you actually have a cool thing. We're just going to put that in our thing. And then basically at this point, I want to be like, look, Drupal, if you put that in there, you have no ground. You get to say nothing about Drupal being better than WordPress.
Who are these people that have been saying that WordPress is a toy compared to Drupal? I want to meet these people.
Oh, I mean, okay, they're here.
I think the thing that threw Say off a little bit about this is that not only are they just gonna be able to use Gutenberg within it, but they'll be creating and maintaining an npm package that they can just essentially just drop right in, and now you have additional code that you're gonna be able to use to be able to actually have your editor. And it makes sense because of the fact that we've been using our WYSIWYG editor for so long now, and it's like we need something new. And if we're gonna start using it, and Drupal can start using it, the concepts have been used in a whole bunch of other places. We've talked about this in the past of using it on Facebook, using it on Instagram. Not to say that the code base is the same, but the same type of theology behind it and the way things are working with it is the same. So really interesting stuff. I'm really kind of keen to see what happens with being able to use this in Drupal, and what other places are going to start using it too, especially when it becomes
very excited to see what sort of. I'm also very excited to see what sort of interoperability this gets us, especially if someone wants to migrate their website from WordPress to Drupal or vice versa.
Website. Drupal
Excuse me?
WordPress. Drupal to WordPress, not
I
WordPress to Drupal.
was saying or vice versa. I mean,
yeah, but they could be the vice versa.
Data wants to be.
This is
free,
not Drupalcooler. Cool. I can't talk.
It's not that at all. I don't even know what Drupalcooler is.
But when we get along, everyone wins because it's about the users, not about us and our egos.
I'm not making it about that. I'm not. That is not the point. That is not what I'm saying here. I think it's great. I think the more that Gutenberg and WordPress spread throughout the lands, the better everything is going to be. And it's still a WordPress project. It's not like they get to take it. They're going to be waiting for Gutenberg to update, and then they'll update, their package. So it's not like that's going to be like that's not like, they're still dependent on that. It's just really more about like the attitude. I do want to say, however, that it is really cool that Gutenberg has impressed them so much that they're like, oh, we kind of want that too. I think that's neat. And I think that the standardization of this kind of concept of, as my friend called it, basically, using text as images, which is one of the like simplest ways I've heard Gutenberg described ever, or the imagization, the visualization of text. That's, like you said, that's the future, right? And that's the direction we're going in. So if we're the ones leading that with the open source that can spread it, I mean, Squarespace and Wix, they have similar stuff, but they're not distributing it, throughout the world. And so WordPress is doing that, and that is always going to be WordPress's, and that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, especially if WordPress is going in the direction where it's been and is building in Gutenberg support into the mobile apps, and those are packages that like a Drupal app could just drop in, or Squarespace app could just drop in. Assuming it's GPL licensed, then the GPL being as effective as it is would mean that when Wix goes ahead and swipes it like they did our previous editor,
they have to be open source if they take it, and that's open sourcing everybody. So it's like if that becomes the standard, then that's great. Like we're the standard. So I'm not mad at that. I just want to clarify. I just think it's funny that it's basically like, you know, someone gives you grief all the time and then you do something cool and they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? You want to be my friend?
I'm with George on the idea of having an editor that uses the same kind of you know, the same kind of layout and being able to drag things in and be able to go from one system to the next system. It's kind of like when like OpenOffice started using the way that Microsoft Word was using bold, italics, underline. You have all those kind of, you know, those kind of very simple ways of being able to modify the text. Having that kind of layout is the same in almost every single editor that has a visualized editor, including the one that's in WordPress. It's because people are so accustomed to that. Yeah, just being able to have bold, italic, underscore, you know, blah, 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 blah. It makes sense because anyone can look at it and go, oh, I can use this. Not to say that Gutenberg is that easy, but of having, you know, just those, you know, few little primitive, you know, ways of being able to edit it. But
let's be clear, though.
People could do that.
Gutenberg is that easy. It's not complicated. Like, I have never thought that people are going to have a hard time using it. My concern has always been the transition. Like, what are we doing to get people over to the other side? That's been the concern. Once you get there, it's like, yay, we're playing with blocks. This is fun. I can move things around. But
now you're thinking with portals.
But this isn't to say that you could take the raw text that Gutenberg makes and copy and paste it between WordPress and Drupal. I mean, you still need to have the blocks.
Depends on the implementation. Right? You certainly could. I mean, if there's a certain amount of common blocks that would cross implementations, like paragraph blocks, like list blocks, like image blocks, it's kind of like XML RPC, where there was the standard list of endpoints that everyone supported, WordPress, Drupal, what have you, and then WordPress added their own ones on top of it. So there could be some blocks that may not transfer from one CMS to another, but ideally there would be a common list of just like a paragraph is a paragraph is a paragraph, no matter what CMS you're doing it under.
Right.
I'm sure I could disagree with that on some level, but I'm going to let that go.
I mean, like if you look at the way that we do images, like we add our own custom classes, the images and stuff. So like maybe that's not going to like transfer over. But I agree, like all your A tags and all your paragraphs and all like your block quotes and stuff, that all should transfer over. And like the fact that we're even talking about this just makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. Makes me happy too. What you were just saying about George reminded me of Loxi. Have you guys heard about Loxi from your email?
Familiar.
Doesn't it? Because you like got an email about it and you're like, why am I getting this email? And then you ignored it. It's because it's the events calendar.
Okay.
Made it. No bell. No bells being rung. So the events calendar made it as a multi-platform. Okay, so it's not the events calendar, it's Modern Tribe. Who makes the events calendar? They made this, it's called Loxi, and it is a multi-platform events calendar. So doing what you were talking about, I'm really interested to see, for example, how this plays into that. Like they've already made something that is, you know, basic, it's like an RSS feed kind of deal where your events can go into all these different platforms. But I think that is kind of what you're talking about, where you can have your central thing and you could take that into all different platforms. Whether or not that's super useful for the end user, because they're not like operating a Drupal site and then also operating a WordPress site typically, but it's still cool because data portability is rad. That's all. That's my thought for the day.
Steve? I just the amount of eye roll that just occurred.
Yeah, from your eyes like are in back of your head now. You know, you can
it's like I need to make sure that the audio podcast folks are actually saw the eye roll.
Yeah,
you can hear it. I think you can actually hear his eye.
Here's my eyes rolling back in my head.
Yeah, it was like.
Look, I think I agree with it what everybody said, but I think about these things from a development standpoint, right? And so I have inherited Drupal projects in the past right, where they've wanted to either maintain it or port it over to WordPress. Drupal as a platform sucks.
Okay.
It is.
We were trying to be nice, Steve.
No, I'm sorry, but from a development standpoint, it's really tough to deal with. And maybe I haven't seen more recent versions of Drupal, but my problem with Drupal is that the front end and the back end are very closely tied together, right? Where in WordPress, they are decoupled, right? So you can do anything you want on the front end of WordPress. I haven't found that to be the case with Drupal.
This is too much.
I'm sorry. I'm speaking purely from a development standpoint.
Yeah, we're talking about code and nothing else. There are no.
So do you feel safe that taking the layer of the editor, the actual editor of it, and applying this to the top of either the front end or the back end of Drupal, how does that make you feel about this? Like having this additional kind of piece there.
Great. Maybe this will make Drupal better.
Tell us how you feel. Tell us about your feelings, Steve.
I just did. I just did.
I know, but I hadn't said that first, so I had to say it anyway.
Here's the deal, right? So, say you're hearing. I think you've heard what you've heard from other people that are diehard Drupal users because they're.
Wait, what? I've heard what I've heard. No, they have told me that. Like that wasn't secondhand information. I'm saying you've gotten that attitude in the past from diehard Drupal developers because that's what they grew up with. It's what they know, right? And if I'm sure if there's any Drupal users or developers watching this podcast, they're yelling at me right now, right? I'm sure that's a big contingent of people.
Well, that's every week. I know a couple agencies that are diehard Drupal agencies. That's all they will develop in. They will not touch WordPress, and they'll say exactly what I'm saying about WordPress. Right? They'll say
Steve
WordPress
just likes it.
Sucks. So
Steve's just comfortable in WordPress. That's why he uses it.
And actually, that's not exactly true. I use WordPress because it's the first system that we found that was completely decoupled. WordPress. When I think of WordPress, I think of the content management piece of WordPress. That's how I think of WordPress. When I think of Gutenberg, I think of it as a nice new content editor. That's it.
Yes.
Right. It has nothing to do with the front of the website, the capabilities of what you can do on the front of the website. All that being said, not every tool is the right fit for every project, right? So there are going to be some sites that are better fit for Drupal. I can't think of any offhand, but there may be, right? We use another platform called Laravel, right? And
Laravel. Is this Laravel cooler now?
Laravel's great. Laravel's awesome from a development standpoint, but it's a better fit for certain kinds of projects that aren't fit for WordPress. Yeah, I can't think of what those are.
This comes from you do a lot of the app work where you really are creating those decoupled sites where you're using the database functionality of WordPress and the content management functionality of WordPress and then doing all sorts of crazy things with it that it's not just like here's a normal website, right? That's basically so you're able to use
we're building SaaS. We're building SaaS products.
Right. So I mean that is I think of Gutenberg and WordPress in the same way because I'm always mostly concerned with the small business users and what they're able to do. And they can, looking at Gutenberg right now, I'm just super excited for them. So really that's the end of it. But like
totally. Have you ever tried to manage a site inside of Drupal?
I've like opened sites inside of Drupal. And it's
Have you ever tried to manage the content inside of Drupal?
Not for any extent.
I'm just going to leave that as an open-ended question. And
how does the media uploader in Drupal work?
I've heard you shouldn't use it.
I remember loading up Drupal for the first time and seeing it reminded me a lot of PHP BB.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is a bunch of
long.
Right, I know, but that's why I liked it. I was like, "Wow, this is not like for me at least. It didn't look like a modern, it didn't look like a modern way of kind of manipulating that, manipulating the content on there, and a lot of kind of their version of meta boxes and their way of kind of storing data and being able to kind of work with that data. Very interesting stuff.
Now I haven't opened Drupal since probably Drupal 6, so I don't know what Drupal 7 looked like.
I was going to say that too. My Drupal is old.
Fun.
Your Drupal's old too, Steve.
My Drupal's way older than yours.
Yeah, your Drupal's older than mine.
Steve's Droop's a little lower is what it is.
Getting up there. I'm always 50.
As one gets older.
Oh Lord! This is the morning zoo portion where we just start making noises.
I asked my team my team was always bringing new technologies into the mix to try and see who names these things. Seriously, who names some of these technologies?
I actually apologize for it a lot of the times with my clients. I'm like, I didn't name that. I'm sorry. That's what it's called.
Or when they name them, do they at least like pass them by somebody that's outside of their sphere to see if
skull?
No, because there is a cucumber.io, but it's actually for like a face cream, so we can use cucumber.ios for this new app that we have, and like that is supposed to compile my scripts, and that makes total sense. Like I agree with you on this, Steve.
Seriously, I mean,
cucumbers totally compile scripts. That's what cucumbers do.
Gulp and slurp or whatever.
You know who named that? White tech boys. That's who named it. That's the answer to that question. Like, I don't like the identity politics, but that is true. Gulp, grunt,
like how many times does a logo come out of a company? You're just like, there were clearly no women on that design team.
Right? Yeah, like, did you guys see the IHOP when they did their marketing thing? They just changed, they flipped the letter, and it's like, so not a single woman on your marketing team is very clear here. No woman passed by this and approved it. And if they did, they're mad at you and probably looking for a new job. So if you don't know what I'm talking about with the new IHOP logo, just go Google it.
That's why you can find penises all over any Disney film.
That's real, by the way. Have you ever gone in there and looked at?
There's a hidden penis in almost every Disney movie.
Aladdin really does say, "Jasmine, take off your clothes." Like I have heard it.
There's this great SNL skit where there's like an advertisement for a lawyer, but like they got the last domain available, so it's like custom.fart. So it's like if you want to hire our personal injury attorney, go to custom.fart, like because that was the only domain left. And I think I think that ties back to who are naming these things, and it's like what is available on the Twitter and on the Instagram and all these things, and cucumber wasn't taken, unfortunately.
So it's basically a random word generator. So there's all these random word generators for hipster businesses that'll do like blank and blank. So basically that's like what we got to do for all of these new technologies. They're just going to like spin up the thing and then put like IO or OS or
back to my original question. Do we know where the name Drupal came from? Was it like the founder's name or something?
Quick, everybody to the Google.
If only there was some sort of way to look this up, man.
Drupal represents an English rendering of the Dutch word Drupal, which means drop, as a water droplet.
Drupal.
There you go. Drupal.
So because it's like one drop in the sea of websites.
Oh, I'm not going that far into it. I just read Wikipedia.
Well, I mean, why are you naming your thing drop? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's in German, if the drop. I think it's because it's your one instance in the sea.
Because the Beastie Boys said, drop.
Well, okay, so the reason why is because the Dutch word DORP is Dutch for village.
Dorp?
Yep. Is Dutch for village. So you're building a village.
Isn't Steve the one who's supposed to read Wikipedia?
He's slow. The guy doesn't know how to use the internet, so I thought I would do it for him.
You really are an excellent Googler, Jason. You're an excellent Googler. I needed to see pictures of California, burning from space. And before he even got the thought out, he was sending me screenshots. So it's great.
He wanted to see the OB logo, so I went and found the logo for you real quick, so that way you could see the tampon logo. Yep.
Anytime I text Jason a tech question, he texts me back, let me Google that for you.com.
I will say Jason Tucker is one of those guys who will drop you a link to one of those random cucumber.io sites because he's like, have you tried this yet? And I'm like, how have you heard of this? And he's like, oh yeah, I've already played with it. Like I have this
He played with Cucumber?
Yeah, he's like, I'm already scraping the source of this thing. Check it out. I'm just like, all right, great.
There you go, Steve. I sent you a link.
Oh
We lost George. George went away. George is on sabbatical from our conversation.
Oh my god, cucumber.io is an actual thing. I thought you were joking.
Are you on sabbatical from our episode, George? We're not paying you, so just deal with it.
At this point,
I will not come back until you double my salary.
I thought George was on a.
There you go.
I thought George like screenshotted an iRoll and just left it on freeze frame. He's actually been sitting there. I thought his camera froze up.
No, he's very still.
Yeah, I used to have a little motion sensor light in my home office just so I wouldn't have to keep turning the light on and off, and then I'd just like be sitting working, and sometimes it would just turn off because I hadn't moved.
And so that's like kind of like your Fitbit going off, being like, maybe you should stand up or move an arm. It's possible that you might need to do that at some point.
You need to feed in a video loop like the movie Speed. We won't even know you're there, or we'll just think you're there.
Just like this, and then
we won't know you're gone.
He goes like this.
Exactly.
Until he like shows up like behind Steve. And then he's like, wait,
he's in the house.
Oh, no. All right, I think we got a little off topic there. Okay.
Whoa, no way. Are you kidding me?
No.
I mean, we could relate this back. I just want to know why George has gone silent. George, are you upset with our conversation about Drupal?
I'm just spacing out.
Oh, okay.
George is still on sabbatical.
Is that like,
yeah.
Is that anything to do with the Space Force? Or is that too political again? Too political. Okay, not saying anything about that. Anyway, so California's burning and Drupal's taking Gutenberg, and is there anything else? The world is ending. I just think
I can think of worse things at the moment, okay?
There are worse things. I do think at one point in time we made a prediction that Jetpack would have Drupal in it, and I want to know, do we get like some sort of award for that prediction?
What if Drupal has Jetpack in it?
Is that's what I'm saying? Like, is that gonna happen?
Oh, like, George is making announcements here. Check this out.
You know what? If Drupal has Jetpack in it, then their contact forms just got better.
I think that's what happened. Like, we're talking about this, and then George and his fresh sabbatical brain is like, ooh, wait, what can I do? So he's working over there. He decided to make a Jetpack Drupal module.
Yes, I built it while we were sitting on the podcast in the last 5 minutes.
Fresh sabbatical brain. I'm going to go buy the domain name. Oh, you know what? It's taken. I'll have to get fresh sabbatical brain.fart.
.io. Really.
.io/org.
.brainio.
.butts.
All right. Well, anyway, I have been having a lot of conversations now that Gutenberg is actually imminent, which seems, I guess, I didn't want to talk about it too early with all my clients. I've been mentioning it like kind of in the background, like, okay, so just FYI, Gutenberg's coming at some point. We better to do something. Well, I mean, they put out 4.9 and alarmed half the world. So
no, wait, what percentage are we at now?
Not half
yet. No. What percentage is WordPress?
Right. You alarmed 31% of the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry. We're not there yet, but soon we'll be able to alarm half the planet. It's, Gutenberg and a presidential alert. They're like the same thing. Anyone get that reference? It's kind of big.
Did.
Okay, cool.
That's good. We're good.
Yeah. But I don't know what I was talking about. I distracted myself with my own reference.
Nobody does. It's okay.
That's all right. I was talking about, I've been talking finally openly and more intensely with various people who I WordPress with, who are not WordPress developers or whatnot. So they're like, wait, Guten what? And then
you shall trust the words.
One of my favorite things was a marketing person who has a marketing agency who goes, so wait, so Gutenberg's just like Divi then? And I was like, sure. Totally. Just like that. But I do think that the users, so I was having this amazing conversation with my friend Sarah, who's a journalist and a journalism professor and a visual communications professor, and she immediately started to see the benefits of modifying text because the text experience on the web has not really changed. It's not only that it hasn't changed inside of the text editor, but it also hasn't changed fully. It hasn't become really immersed on the web. So we're still reading text on the web as if it's a newspaper that was printed. It's just digital instead. And I really feel that this is about to take all of this to that next level where the journalists and the people who are using WordPress to communicate information are going to be empowered to be able to make, just like with Canva, for example, empowers people to make cool graphics, right? Like this will empower people to make text that maybe people will be more engaged by. And if people are more engaged with the text, then they'll be reading more. And then if they read more, we'll all be smarter and then we'll save the planet. That's right. I did that. Gutenberg will save the world.
Gutenberg is here to create a more informed electorate.
Well, yes, but then save the world because that's more dramatic, so it sounds better. I want a shirt right now.
And with that, we're done. It's 11:30. Wow. I want to say thank you very much, folks, for being on the show today. It's super awesome for you guys to always come back. I really appreciate it. Make sure you go to our website at WPwatercooler.com/subscribe. That's where you can learn about how to subscribe. I actually added subscription buttons for every different type of place that you can get our podcast. We're on a lot of places now, so feel free to go take a look at that. If you're using Spotify,
terrifying.
No joke, you can actually listen to us while you're listening to, whatever your audio, whatever music you're playing on Spotify.
Cucumber.io/WPwatercooler.
We sound so official.
And if I pissed off any Drupal developers, just contact me at Jason Tucker at WPwatercooler.com.
Or your nearest local circular file.
I'm still at Seaweed Media for the next foreseeable bit of time.
All right, folks, talk to y'all later.
Concatenate it onto DevNull. Thank you.
Bye.